Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich begrüße Sie ganz herzlich. Guten Abend. Ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie heute hier bei uns sind. Das ist ein Format Afghanistan Research Hub, ein Projekt des Afghanistan Forums in Deutschland. Das ist ein Projekt, was noch jung ist und diesem Jahr wir damit starten und Sie werden einiges von uns hören. Ja, ich heiße Kefa Hamidi, ich wohne in Leipzig und arbeite an der Universität Leipzig. Ich forsche und lehre hier und leite ein Forschungszentrum, das Entwicklungskommunikation, Communication to Social Change heißt. Ich bin Initiator mit Dr. Harun Badakhshi des Projektes Afghanistan Forum in Deutschland. Das so ein bisschen mehr später. Wir haben als Format auch diese Reihe Afghanistan Research Hub initiiert. Wir möchten uns in diesem Format mit High Education System in Afghanistan beschäftigen. Das ist ein Hochschulwesen, Wissenschaftsstruktur oder Wissenschaftssystem in Afghanistan. Warum ist das uns wichtig, genau mit diesem Thema uns zu beschäftigen? Das resultiert aus zwei Gründen. Zum einen, wir sprechen seit August 2021 von diesem Zerfall der staatlichen Strukturen in Afghanistan, aber bisher haben wir uns nicht mit Teilsystemen als System sehr viel damit beschäftigt, auch in den Medien, aber auch in politischen Debatten, aber bisher kaum mit Teilsystemen, die auch zerfallen sind. Teilsysteme meine ich dann zum Beispiel Bildungssystem, Hochschulwesensystem oder Mediensystem. Das sind Teilsysteme, die auch zerfallen sind. Und wenn man sich damit beschäftigt, wird auch erst der Ausmaß dieses Zerfalls uns Ausmaß auch realistisch. Und wir wollten auch in diesem Format mit diesem Teilsystem, also Wissenschaftssystem oder Hochschulwesen Afghanistan beschäftigen und auch vertiefen. Und daraus resultiert auch der zweite Grund. In den letzten Monaten haben wir erlebt, dass einige Programme, Förderprogramme, auch in Deutschland initiiert worden sind, damit die Menschen, die in diesem Kontext gearbeitet haben, hier unterstützt werden. Ich meine, hier ist sehr wichtig, dass man, damit man diese Programme, auch Initiativen besser justieren kann, dass man auf lokales Wissen aufgreift und oder auch Zugriff hat. Lokales Wissen, zirkuliertes Wissen und deswegen freue ich mich sehr, dass wir heute eine sehr wichtige Persönlichkeit gewinnen konnten, Zubair Sediqi, dazu später dann Badakhshi wird mehr sagen, dass er uns Einblick gibt, was in den letzten 10, 20 Jahren in diesem Kontext entstanden ist und was jetzt zerfallen ist. Das ist auch sehr wichtig zu wissen, wenn man auch dann perspektivisch überlegt, was in diesem Bereich entwickelt werden konnte. Sowohl vor Ort, wenn überhaupt das möglich ist, aber vor allem außerhalb, also aus dem Ausland, was man für dieses Land entwickeln konnte in diesem Bereich. Deswegen ist uns sehr wichtig, das Thema aufzugreifen. Und das ist der Beginn, wie ich gesagt habe, diese Afghanistan Research Hub ist eine Reihe. Und heute starten wir mit der Veranstaltung und dann jeweils in regelmäßiger Zeit. Wir werden auch aus diesem Kontext wichtige Persönlichkeiten einladen, die dann diesen Einblick in dieses System geben und Entwicklungen, die da in den letzten Jahren stattgefunden haben. Und heute, wie gesagt, beginnen wir mit dieser Veranstaltung. Vielleicht 2, 3 Wörter noch zum Afghanistan-Forum. Wie ich gesagt habe, das ist eine Initiative, was in diesem Jahr vielleicht auch in eine Vereinsstruktur fließen wird, ist, wir möchten durch dieses Vorhaben eine Anlaufstelle oder eine Stelle schaffen für Menschen aus Afghanistan, die jetzt nach Deutschland gekommen sind und dort im akademischen, wissenschaftlichen Kontext gearbeitet haben und hier diese Aktivitäten auch weiter fortsetzen möchten. Und wir möchten in diesem Bereich sozusagen diese Menschen unterstützen und auch Ansprechpartner sein. werden zwei, drei Bereiche sein, in denen wir tätig sind. Zum einen Advocacy, also für diese Menschen auch in diesen Strukturen, wie zum Beispiel dieses Format heute, Bereich Advocacy arbeiten. Wir wollen auch Education, also Workshop-Formate entwickeln, damit man diese Menschen auch empowern kann. Und drittens auch Forschung, dass man auch Möglichkeiten schafft, das gemeinsam Forschungsprojekte auch umzusetzen. So, soweit von mir. Ich möchte also auch nicht so viel reden. Und jetzt gebe ich das Wort an Dr. Harun Badakhshi. Wie ich gesagt habe, gemeinsam, er ist Arzt und Philosoph und wir gemeinsam haben wir dieses Projekt initiiert, Afghanistan Forum in Deutschland. So, bitteschön.
Vielen Dank, Dr. Hamidi. Von mir auch ein Willkommen im Afghanistan Forum in Deutschland. Wir werden ins Englische wechseln, damit der Aktionsradius und Verständigungsradius sich ein bisschen damit steigern lässt. Aber ich denke, dass Sie alle, liebe Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer, mit Sicherheit hier mit uns sind und nachvollziehen können. So, for me, welcome too. I would like to start with a short introduction of Mr. Sediqi because his achievements in the realm of the real world has been really significant. So I will tell some sentences about him, and then he will have a presentation which will take 12 to 15 minutes, and afterward we will have a Q&A session with questions and answers, whatever you like. I think this is a good opportunity to start today with a person which was involved in the system, and he could tell us some inside information and inside knowledge we will need in today and in the near future, not just for us, but even for a broader spectrum of people who have been involved in academia at what level ever, and hopefully to have contacts with German, European, and other institutions and organization formats which are seeking to help academicians, students, teachers, and all other university-involved persons who are in Afghanistan, who have been coming to Europe or to US. So let's say that's a kind of starting point, what we'll achieve. So some words about Mr. Sediqi's bio. Mr. Sediqi received a master from the Technical University of Berlin. After return to Afghanistan, he worked as a lecturer at the Department of Computer Sciences in Kabul Polytechnic University. He advanced to the position of the head of the same department recently then. Afterward, he changed to the Ministry of Higher Education and remained there till 2020. So very shortly, just the recent bio. His activities within the ministry was containing a really wide range of important and, to my eyes and to our perspectives, very significant tasks he has achieved. And we are very happy to have him here in order to talk and exchange some basic informations. As a director of developments of academic programs, he had led different boards within the ministry, such as a postgraduate board, such as curriculum board, and to me, very interesting, the board for e-learning, for, let's say, all digital issues, which might be very important even today, if we relate then later, if we have time to talk on these issues. As a member of board of directors in the ministry, he was involved in all important decisions, which is very important because of his insight. He established then multiple academic programs within the ministry and in the realm of Afghanistan-based universities, public and private. And it is impressive to me and to us what he achieved indeed. For example, he developed 42 bachelor programs in public universities. He developed at least 16 master programs, which is comparing to the, let's say, last 100 years of academia history in Afghanistan, a real big achievement, which I'm gratulating. So he reformed in his functionary for curricula at least 50 various systems. And to me, and more relevant, it seems that he established a research directorate within the ministry, which was maybe first real attempt to bring issues which are related to research, academia, and scientific research into the ministry and then to develop it. More importantly, he was intensively involved in collaborations with institutions in other countries, which makes, again, things which we will listen from him very interesting because of his experience in these realms of collaborations with other organizations and all other universities outside the country. I think it will be very important to understand the importance of his statements because of his extensive and extraordinary experiences he can show us. To date, he's a Ph.D. candidate at a prestigious institution in Germany, namely Max Planck Institute for Informatics in the city of Saarbrucken, which is in the west of Germany. So we are very delighted, Mr. Sediqi, having you here and having you such an excellent academician and well-experienced real-world expert. That's something very makes a difference because you are coming from a realm of politics which has more significance and more impact than all other, let's say, theoreticians and experts and those who are far from all these issues like we are. So thank you again. And I will give you the word to have your presentation, which will take, I guess, 12 to 15 minutes, let's say. And then we will have a Q&A session. And so, please, you have the word.
Thank you very much, Mr. Badakhshi, and hello to everyone. I think I'm thankful to the nice words and kind words that you have said, Mr. Badakhshi. But I'll give the credit to the entire team and the commission and boards where we worked in the past few years in higher education, which is not only the people who worked in the ministry, but they were mainly from the universities. So the credit goes everything to the entire team and the people who were involved. I have a presentation and I want to give an insight to the higher education. If you can share my screen, please. Can you see my presentation? Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. So I'll try to give an insights to how higher education looked like in Afghanistan, what were done, and what were the progress and what were the challenges as well, to some extent. But since we have 12 to 15 minutes, I will try to be a bit quick and make sure that we cover enough stuff, and then rest of the parts we can discuss in Q&A as well. So if you look at higher education in Afghanistan, it's built in somehow 50 years back. This presentation contains information that's reflected in National Higher Education Plan 2 of Afghanistan, and also my personal observation and experience from the system. In Afghanistan, we have 3 different authorities for the entire education system. The first one is Ministry of Education that covers the primary and secondary school from class 1 to 6 and 7 to 12. And then we have the TVET authority, which covers 9 to 14 and also 13 to 14. And then we have Ministry of Higher Education that's responsible for bachelor programs, master programs, Ph.D. programs at the moment. We don't have postgraduate program in Afghanistan right now. So yeah, and usually the students study in the schools and then they try to enter to the higher education. So on average, in the recent year, there were about 200,000 students graduating from schools in Afghanistan who are attempting to pursue for their higher education. And about 25% of them were able to join the government because the higher education services in Afghanistan is free, and that's why most of the people were trying to join the public higher education universities or institutes, we also call it. And the remaining would go to the private universities as well as to the professional colleges, or we call it TVETs. In terms of statistics in the higher education of Afghanistan, we had 39 governments. So we use the term higher education institute as basically a smaller and more focused university, but legally the term institute is used, and university is a bigger one. We have 39 universities and higher education institutes in Afghanistan, which are public. And basically it's one institute or university per province, except in some provinces we have more, like in Kabul, we have 4 big universities. And then we have 131 plus, because some of them are also in progress, private universities. About 185,000 students are studying in government, and about 165,000 students are studying in private. They are taught by around 11,000 academic members, which are also teachers or lecturers. Around 6,000 of them work in government, and around 5,000 are in private sector or private universities. Well, the last information that I had from the education sector when I was working, so we had a student to teacher ratio of 1 to 35, and then we were trying to bring it down to 130. That was the plan. And as you can see in the bottom, we have the number of doctors, master, bachelor for university teachers or lecturers. We had in 2016, it was 46% bachelor degree holders. I mean, in fact, in Afghanistan, there are many lecturers who are holding a bachelor degree, but they're also teaching because of lack of resources, and we don't have so many master and PhDs there. And around 51% were masters, and about 3% were PhDs. So the plan, the forecasted plan, was that we bring this number higher, like make 75% of all the government, mainly teachers, to improve their education qualification to master degree, and we bring the PhD holders to 5% for 41. Let's not forget that most of these PhDs are were old age, so we would face also the retirement rate, and that's why, and also PhD is taking longer time. So that's why that's the number. But in reality, to be honest, I don't think we achieved it in 2020 when I was there, but I would say maybe 60% probably were master degree holders in the system on that time. In terms of academic programs, and we had 170 various bachelor programs. The variety was like 170, or plus or minus, because some fields are very close of some field of studies. And then they were taught by different, like more than 1,000 departments. And the reason that there is 1,000 is obviously because the same department is offered by 2 different universities. So then you have 2 or more departments offering, let's say, a bachelor in engineering of, I don't know, medical engineering or something, or agronomy or whatever field. And then we had 70 plus master programs in Afghanistan, and we only have 3 PhD programs. 2 is in national languages and 1 is in Islamic studies in Afghanistan. The other key point in higher education was the curriculums that we were teaching. And from 2000, the process began to update and to reform the curriculum. And then there were efforts by different parties, like the partner universities, the teacher who study abroad, the NGOs and small projects, they were doing it. And they were trying to modernize the curriculum so that we teach. But then when in recent year, we started a national project, and it had the goal that how have a curriculum that's more or less close to international standards. At least it has the main pillars of studies where the other students study, and it's also market oriented, so the people who graduate and get their degree, they can get a good job and they can work in the market. And also we were trying to align the programs with the national development of the country, like what is the national plan for Afghanistan, where we need more resources to be graduated in the next 5 years or 10 years. So we were trying to align the curriculum on that fashion. To modernize the education system, we were also trying to move from a legacy or a traditional teacher-centric teaching to a modern way of student-centered or outcome-based education. In 2009, higher education started the quality assurance in Afghanistan, and in 2018 and 19, somehow we had this information where like majority of the universities, they started to the quality assurance and accreditation process to ensure that certain quality levels are met in every university and then every program. And then the same was applied for the private sector as well. When I left higher education in 2020, there were 8 universities, 4 from public and 4 from private, who got their accreditation, and they were accredited by that time. The other aspect was the research aspect in higher education. So at the beginning of my career in Ministry of Higher Education, when I joined, there was one person in charge for entire research in Afghanistan higher education, and that was an administrative person. And then we thought one of the main tasks of a university is to conduct efficient research to solve the problems of the community. So we promoted that one to a directorate, and then while there exist many paper-based magazines, the entire team was pushing to have a more standard research. And for that, on that time, we changed the law to kind of force the academic members and the university lecturers to publish in international journals. And in order for them to achieve to a higher rank or promote from one to another level in their professional career, they were required to do this publication. And also the establishment of online journals were the efforts, and some of university has already started. And then several committees were activated within the university to monitor the research and to strengthen the research. And those years, like 2017, 18 and 19, were the initial years where we had the initial funding for research. And this was the first time that from Afghan budget, a research proposal was funded. So the whole idea was that how to cultivate and strengthen the research within the higher education institution, not as one of the main tasks for every lecturer and every professor, and to solve the problems. On the other hand, the higher education ministry was trying to establish more and more partnership. On that time, we had academic partnership in terms of memorandum of understanding or MOUs with 40 countries, but majority of them were covering the bachelor, master, and PhD programs for our students or teachers. And also some of them were covering the joint research, and some other were about infrastructure, lab equipment from different countries and from different universities. And those were the active partnerships that many of the people benefited. And in fact, I was one of the lecturers who benefited from one of these partnerships and studied in Germany. Other component was the student services. So there were many young generation in Afghanistan that were willing to study abroad. And for them, the higher education was trying to facilitate the way that they could study in regional countries. And on average, as per our records on those years, it was 2,000 students were traveling to India, to Turkey, and to Pakistan, Malaysia, and some other regional countries for higher education. We also initiated the budget for talented, where we sent some students to abroad, and we signed different MOUs with different countries to help the students on that time so that they can study. On the inside, the hostel or the dormitory were the things where many poor people who are coming from the provinces and want to study, they needed hostel. And many hostels were built. It's hard to like quantify, to say exact numbers for me. But we also established, I think around 11 universities, they established career centers, which was a new initiative to help the students to build their careers. And the internship programs, like the government was slowly able to take some of the students and provide them with internship facilities, as well as the private sector, and also some mental health clinics and other practical projects were established at the universities. Gender in higher education. So female students and education for females in Afghanistan was and I think still is one of the hottest topic. So at that time, the higher education allocated a quota, and around 25% of entire public higher education seats in the universities were allocated to female students. But that was not fair enough, because within the university you need to provide a sound environment so that culturally people can allow their daughters, their sisters to study on those universities. So creating a fair university atmosphere for them was also required, where we developed several bylaws and regulations to ensure their safety and so that they can study. Still, there were challenges and there were problems. Especially for girls who were coming to a different province to study. Although we had 14% of female students, they were enrolled in dormitories, but still this was not enough for all the girls and students that we had there. Although there were some push to have more females in the leadership positions, like as a dean of faculty, as a vice chancellor, in the directorate. But overall, if you compare it with, we still had this as a challenge, and we have not had enough female candidates in different positions. IT was used as one of the tools to improve the education, to improve the quality of education, and also to provide access to internet and to the update knowledge areas and information to students. So the statistic was that we had a 58 student 1 PC ratio on that time. And we were trying to improve it to 42 by establishing different ICT labs in different universities, and also conducting ICT trainings to teachers as well as to students. The other concept was the e-learning, where the idea was that if not all the people can go abroad, we can bring the education through technology to the houses of Afghans by using IT and internet. And edX and other platforms were one of them for education. Nevertheless, the government and the old-fashioned and bureaucratic fashion was also a challenge, and there were efforts to improve it, and one of the key elements was the higher education management information system. The idea was how we can move from a paper-based system to an electronic-based, which is more quicker, and it should respond quicker to the need of the people and also to the universities. But on the other hand, we had old regulations and also bylaws, which was not fitting to the current state of higher education. So reforming the bylaws and the regulation and all the processes, the internal administrative processes, were other components that our team on that time was working, and I think a bunch of these collection and reform of these bylaws are still available on the website of Ministry of Higher Education. I would say the current or the last moment's situation or challenges were still there. We still had a low education level of teachers with having so many bachelor in the system. It was a challenge. And also professional teachers, because I think knowing is one thing, teaching is something different. We had so many people that knew it, but probably they require some skills on how to teach. Also the infrastructure, the classes, buildings, and the environment that we had overall, I would say it was lack of educational infrastructure, such as internet connection, and curriculum was another aspect, which was, to some extent, I would say a lot of work has been done, but it was not fully completed, because the problem with the curriculum is that it's not enough that you have a good curriculum. It's for a good curriculum, you need a good resources like teachers, materials, and labs if it's practical. And then once you apply it, then you need to evaluate how good you're doing. And that's when your graduates go to the market and you observe and you feedback and stuff like so on. So I would say there was a long way to go on that one, but certain step has been taken on that time. And I think that was really good. And we could saw the impact on the people who graduated from modern curriculum. Lack of education and administration equipment, I think it's a common one in countries like Afghanistan. Also, the perspective to the higher education is important. We were getting about 1.8 or to 2% of the entire national budget. And I think since the higher education is the motor or the engine of human resource for Afghanistan development, it were to invest more on that. I would say quality education has a higher cost, but education has an even higher cost. So I think it were to pay more attention. And political influence and bureaucratic government system was also one other challenges during that time. To sum it up, and to my personal view, I think Afghanistan has begun the phase one, which was the quantity in higher education, and the quantity, the expansion of higher education was very good in the past 20 years. We started from 5 universities to 39 public universities, and from 0 to 131 private universities in 20 years. It's quite high. And 25% of public seats for female, considering the culture and tradition of Afghanistan, was also a big achievement. What we were lacking on higher education, and somehow somehow around 2015, I think the system and the people in the system began to work on it. That was about the quality aspect of higher education in Afghanistan. And quality of teaching, quality of learning, quality of research, and quality in administrative system. These were the things that I think require more and more attention, and we could work on it on that time. With this, that's it from my side. I'll be happy to take your questions, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for your insights and all the detailed information on the, let's say, last positions of and situation of higher education, university-based education in the country. I would like to ask you, I would like to focus on 2 or 3, in my eyes, basic but pertinent issues which might be interesting, not in regard to the past. You have explained that, what the situation was, but we are interested somehow in the situation. How could we contribute to the current situation? How we could improve or change things for those who are now somewhere else abroad, and even for those who are in the country. So I would just ask again, specifically about the tasks or issues related to research. I understand the necessity of, let's say, teaching and being educated, which is important at the level of not just quantity, and as you said, and with the notion of quality, which is very important. But you have explained it very well. But maybe one question again back: how was the process of establishing a research directorate within the ministry and the universities? tell us some details, which would be very interesting. And I'm asking you because of my very personal interest and things and issues which are related to research, because I think that teaching alone is not enough. We know on what level, but research is inducing thinking and innovation and change at the end of the day. So could you tell us some words about the establishing this research directorate? If it was easy, it was difficult, it was so, please.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I think the higher education, like to me, or from my perspective, one of their main job in the country is to do good research, to solve either research and innovation, produce knowledge, and to solve the problems. So this is one of the main tasks for the universities. However, due to, I think, certain reasons, you know that in Afghanistan, the research was not that, the research was not done in a way that it should be. So to establish a directorate, you need to submit a proposal that's acceptable first within the ministry or within the colleagues that you have, like deputy minister and minister. And then once they're okay and you could justify it, then you need like the entire, from an HR perspective, the positions, from academics perspective, the justification. And then you need to, like we submitted it to the presidential office on that time, and we wrote our proposal with all the justification and with all the requirement, including the structure. But this was a teamwork, I would say. And then after a year, we defended, because every hit count that you get, so in Afghanistan, you have a central system, and every year they plan the new positions, the number of positions that one can get. And it's hard to get it. So you need to have enough justification and evidence for your requirement. Mm-hmm. Then we went and defended in an administrative office of the president, and they agreed that, it makes sense. And then finally we approved it. But once we had that one, later on we started the hiring process, and then we established a new commission and a separate director. And it took like 1.5 years overall. Okay. My personal experience is that working in Afghan government system, since it's bureaucratic, it requires very patient and so much efforts that you have to pay on it. Otherwise, there are many initiatives that have failed because of this bureaucratic system. So and then at the university levels, I think most of the fresh graduate PhD holders and also some masters, they had interest to establish the research committees, and we just paved the way for them. We just helped them to legalize it and to frame it and to count it for them, what they're doing as their academic activities.
Nice. Thank you very much. Thank you. So my second question, and I seeing the chat, and I will take that too. My second question would be, to what European or EU-based universities or institutions was the relationship as good as you could then say we could involve people, academicians, students, postgraduates, or graduates from the country who are now abroad, somewhere in Europe? Where could we, let's say, take a contact back to these institutes and institutions within the European Union or within the Germany, let's say? Do you see any examples which could be beneficial for all those young people, female and male, who are now abroad? And the third question will follow soon.
Yeah, thank you. As far as I remember, I think there were many partnerships. So as I said, TU Berlin was one of them where I studied. In Bochum, Ruhr University was the other one, which was mainly involved in economic studies or economic program, economic faculty program. And also in geology and mining. So I don't have the name of the university on top of my head, but there was a project called AMIA, which took certain resources from different universities and was working with geology and mining sector in Afghanistan. Also the one from Leipzig University, where Hamidissa worked with Nengaha University in journalism, and we were trying that time to expand it. There could be more, but to be frank, counting them is a bit hard, because there could be a lot of things going beneath the relation, and if I don't have to do anything, if everything goes small, then I may not even know it. So yeah, I think with French there was on medical studies, on political sciences. We had with Brighton as well, Brighton universities, but I think I cannot name like all the universities.
I'm absolutely agree with. We do not now need names, but just to remember that we have now the chance, not because of the openness and generosity of European Union and the corresponding countries like France, UK, Germany, Spain, Italy, and so, that we could maybe revive again some relations which have been established in the past 5, 6, 7 years. So just an idea how to help to those who are now at need for this help outside the country, mostly in Europe, but even to find a kind of practical utilitarian use for those who are at need in the country, within the country. And that would be my last questions about the establishment of e-learning issues. So do you see any chance practically, if we may find, let's say, financing and possibilities to establish a kind of version, a format, a process of reestablishing internet-based education, and even in some areas which would be, let's say, cultural studies, history, philosophy, social sciences, even to do research, let's say internet-based. Do you see any practical and useful chances for this kind of reconnecting with the country, for those who are in the country, keen for knowledge and for studying, but under very, very difficult conditions? Do you see any chance?
I mean, since my background is also technology, and I also, when I was there, we developed MOOC, Massive Open Online Courses, and we published it on edX platform. I'm not sure, I didn't check, but maybe it's available. So about, I mean, overall, to answer it, yes, I see technology as a tool that can be used to provide access to quality education to Afghans who are either inside Afghanistan or outside Afghanistan. As a general term, yes. But practically speaking, I think there are more work to be done, because there's a lot of open question, I would say, that we need to answer. But as a visionary statement, yes, my answer is yes. It's possible. That's why we have internet, we have these technologies, and people can take benefit. So definitely in our context, in Afghanistan context, we can use it. Practically speaking, I still see challenges, but those are challenges and can be solved. And one of the challenges, like the access to good internet in Afghanistan. The second one is the tradition and the culture in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, our experience was that our student was good when they were taught by a teacher in the class. And when they were not in the class, the course was not that effective for them. So the motivation that a student should have, right? That's really important, I mean, for a student that they stay nowadays in Afghanistan, that why I should study, why I should, for example, invest my time and everything on that one. But I think it requires a separate discussion, a separate agenda, but as she said, that we only focus on how to use the technology for access to provide access to Afghans to the higher education. And on there's a lot of stuff that I can open and discuss it. It's really hard, but generally, yes, there is a long way, but it's possible.
Okay, that sounds good, and that's the only reason why I'm asking you as an expert in IT and expert in higher education, and then is exactly that we need at this moment and maybe in the near future, at first and foremost, a kind of vision we need, and then to start to implement, let's say, visionary elements into the reality. We may fail, that's life, but we may success at some stage for some subgroups, some very vulnerable subgroups like younger women, which are at the end of their school times or at the beginning of the university, and now under current situation very difficult and complex. But at least that's the reason why I'm asking you, and your answer is absolutely good, because we need this, exactly that. We have to think about this, what kind of options we might find with the help of some European, German, French, and other institutions to provide, let's say, basic but quality teaching, and in some cases, even quality research. It sounds very difficult, I know. It sounds like a almost unsolvable problem. I think this is not unsolvable. We just need people like you and others who could come together and think practically and with some visions. Without visions, we are somehow lost. Okay, I would just transfer one question from Mr. Najafi. He asked you, I just read it, what future you vision for higher education under the current regime? More concentration on of private sector? So this is a question which every one of you could answer in case you want.
Yeah, thank you. So I would say to Mr. Najafi, since I'm not there now and I was not there, so my idea I don't think would really matter, to be honest, because like any others, I have the information that you people have from the media and things, and practically the higher education, the public universities are closed nowadays. This is what my information is. Private is operating with some different things, some different rules. It's really hard, no matter private or public. But if you simply ask what is the higher education future in Afghanistan, it's a hard question at this moment. Because we still don't know what will happen in let's say 1 year in Afghanistan, especially in particular in the higher education sector. And in this case, what I can say is, as an Afghan, I hope for that things go well in the sector, and at least our people and the investment that in this sector has been made could somehow contribute to help those students and those who need to have access to a good higher education. Yeah, that's all from my side, I think.
The same question on Dr. Hamidi too.
Ich kann nur auf Deutsch sagen.
Ja,
Was war
die Frage? Die unmittelbare Zukunft, ob der Privatsektor eine Rolle spielen soll. Ich übersetze es dann gleich.
Also ich sage am besten gar nichts. Das wird so irgendwie total andere Richtung gehen.
Okay. Let's say. Okay. I don't see any other questions now in the chat. I would like to ask you again for some visions, because we know that all practical implications at this moment, and especially because we all three are abroad, it's not so easy to implement and to bring it into the reality of the life of students at this moment. But when we think a bit further, what will be exactly our goal actually? What be for you a goal to take any possible and realistic chance to improve, let's say, to make possible and then to improve a kind of quality higher education for those who are keen for seeking for that. I'm not generalizing that, let's say, in a very general way, but to say for those who are ready to do this, who are ready to go at least to kind of online internet-based universities, what would be the goal actually regarding all these difficulties and challenges? I'm absolutely aware that it's not easy even to think about it, but why not? So the reason why we are sitting here is exactly that, to think options, to think conditions of possibility for these issues which seem at the first glance almost impossible and very, let's say, utopian. But you see, beyond utopia is always reality. What will be your vision actually?
To me, I mean, despite all the recent changes that happened in Afghanistan, I think our students, our teachers, or universities, and the entire higher education sector has nothing to do with politics. So those who and they are entirely the most important human resources in Afghanistan. So I think those who were helping Afghan people, I mean, they should help their Afghan peoples now as well. I know there are always, I can understand the political relationship and tightness matters. The closer you are, probably the more support and the more collaboration and cooperation you get. But as a human, I mean, if you just think, I mean, still there are Afghans, right? The political system changed. So I appreciate whatever efforts happen, no matter where and in which country, as long as it is for the benefit of Afghan people. On the other hand, we can also think about, especially about the failed projects in higher education sector and the reasons what we can learn from that one, and we should not repeat it. Right. And I think it's also a good time to look back, to reopen those projects and see why we did not achieve the mission or the vision that we had at that time. Definitely now with the new changes in the government, we need to change it. And that's why probably the IT and e-learning as a tool came to our mind that, okay, this could be the right tool to help back and to connect back to those people. So to me, no matter the political situation, what happens, I think the Afghan students and the Afghan people there, or even abroad, those who moved, they are, I don't know if eligible is the right word, but they are the people who should be supported. But also they also have to stand by their own feet at some point, because that's not always it, and it never happened for any nation. They have to stand and learn. I see that, I mean, it's hard to somehow do not consider the political situation, because everything you think, somehow the political influence is there. And although I don't want to talk at all about the political situation, but somehow I feel that inside Afghanistan, it has influence. But nevertheless, I think through technology we can use, because anyway, Afghanistan is there and the market still need people like good doctors, good engineers, and so on. But we can think how we can bring the experience of, let's say, European countries or other countries through technology, how we can channel it to Afghans inside there, and then how we can motivate them to use it. Because if they don't have the motivation, although you will bring it, internet is full of content, but they will not use it, they can say, okay, why I should study it, because there's no future for me. So a job market, a vision, a motivation for the young generation, for the student, I think that's really important. The personal messages that I get from the people in Afghanistan, nowadays the motivation level is very low. towards higher education. Because, I mean, Afghanistan is a poor country. Most of the people, they try to go to higher education so that they have a better future. After they got their degree, they can have a decent job, a good income, and a good life. But if they, like, nowadays, when they see that there's no value of their degree, and all those who have studied, I mean, they lost their motivation. So I would say we need like phases. We need to have a good motivation and then a realistic motivation, and then see how we can help for the young generation. And we also have so many people who came outside. They also need help. So I think it's good for these people to help them through different channels, technological channels or others, to make their life easier to learn and to bring their life in a better stage. Yeah, I hope somehow I could cover your question and provide an answer, but that's more or less my personal thoughts.
You did. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much again for your insight, for the data provided, and the all basic informations we had at urgent need to understand the complexity of this system, even under difficult economical and political situations. But your last sentences should be somehow a good lead to this issue, not just to hope, but even to do something. I think that's our task, to see where the practical issues are, and to try and to attempt to reestablish and to reconnect to all those younger people at the different stages of their education, to give them hope and to give them practical help by all means necessary. So that would be my last sentence, and the time is over. I thank you all for listening and for your patience. And I think we from the Afghanistan Forum in Germany, or Afghanistan Forum Deutschland, will provide a lot of following insights into the complexities of all these systems and subsystems. And I think the presence and the talk of Mr. Sediqi was a good start in order to have real world experience from the inside of the system and to understand the complexities. Thank you very much again for all of you, and see you next time.
Thank you very much for the time. And I wish success for the entire team, as well as thanks for the audience and participants. Have a good time.
Thank you.